Hi all. I was told that maybe some videos might help you guys see a little bit better what I'm hoping for you guys to get out of the assignments. So I'm gonna go ahead and try that. I realize many of you have already submitted assignment one, but I'm still gonna sort of walk you through some of the features because I know some of you are struggling with it. And I'm also gonna try to tell you a little bit more about R Markdown, R Studio, things like that that might be helpful. So I'm going to start this video assuming you have gone through assignments 1.1 and 1.2 so that you have downloaded the data files that you need, that you've downloaded R and R Studio, and that you're kind of at the point where you are ready to actually start making R Markdown files. So the first thing you'll notice is that my screen probably looks slightly different from yours. Some of that is the coloring. So as I mentioned, here, you can go to, oh, they moved it on me, global options. You can go to appearance and pick different colored things if you prefer. Like Dracula's kind of cool. I like that, but I always come back to Cobalt in the end. The other thing you'll notice is that my console is up here. So you've got a source pane here, and this is where we do all of our R Markdown typing. Down here, we have what's called the environment. And so when you create variables, for instance, they will populate down here. And so you can see whether or not you've created a variable or not. And then this is kind of a general purpose thing. Viewer will sometimes show you certain types of pop-outs, graphs. You've got the help page here. Your files actually mimics your file browser. And so right now I'm just in a home page, I think. Yeah, I'm not in the file or the working directory that I should be in. So what I'm probably gonna do, this is because our studio closed out on me and I just reopened it. Let's see, I'll do this and then assignments and then we'll open assignment 2. This should set my working directory correctly. Get WD. There we go. Okay. So for assignment 1, the last thing I'll say is that I have moved my console up here. And I do that because, like, yes, this is the source folder and this is where you end up saving your work, or this is the source pane. But sometimes you want to do something short that you don't necessarily need to record in the future. Installing packages is going to be another one. I tend to like it on this side. If that's a preference you have as well, you can also go to global options. It's going to be under pane layout. You've got different options for where each one can be. And so for mine, my source pane is here. My console is here. All this files, plots, packages, blah, blah, blah is here. And then my environment and stuff is here. So you can move things around to your liking. Okay, so assignment 1.3 has you creating an R Markdown file once you've got the latest versions of R and R Studio. So you're going to go to File, New File, R Markdown. It's going to give you this fancy thing. A lot of times I just press Create Empty Document, but for your purposes, assignment 1, blah, 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 use current date when rendering the document. That's a new feature. You can always just click that. That's kind of cool. And we can set it to Word as an output. As mentioned in the document, you can get rid of all of this. I think it's supposed to be helpful. I find it's not helpful. And so now you've got this YAML front matter is what it's called. And it just says like the title, author, the date. This code will insert the system date, which is whatever the date is when you knit the file. And the output is a Word document. So blah, 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 blah. got the assignment open on my other screen. So the next thing we're supposed to do is put a header and put part 1. Note that the 2 hashtags, when you're using R Markdown specifically, will create a second level header. You can use as many hashtags as you need, but each hashtag you add makes it one more indented. And 2 point, or say 1.1. Earning R Markdown. This R Markdown document is my work. And I work for assignment 1. It is my work and only my work. And at this point, one should knit. I'm going to skip that bit. But it's always good at points like this to knit your file just to make sure that it's working properly. The next thing it asks you to do is to create another second level header. So that's 2 hashtags called load libraries. And then insert a code chunk. In general, I would keep spaces between like your headers or text and your code chunks. This is a code chunk, by the way, all of this. The 3 backticks, brackets are brackets, then a space where all your code would go, and then another set of brackets. There's a couple of ways you can make these code blocks. You can press this little button up here and click R, and that'll do it. However, if you feel like being a bit of a power user, there are keyboard shortcuts that you can use. And so on a Mac, it's Command Option Insert. All tools, keyboard shortcut helps. Insert chunk, yeah. Option Command I is how you would insert a code chunk on a Mac. So if you're on a Windows, it's probably going to be Control rather than Command. But anyways, you insert your code chunk. At this point, you need to start installing packages. So install packages. You'll notice that it auto-completes for me. This is a setting in RStudio. When it does this, I like to just press Tab because I'm lazy and because I want it to type it for me so that I'm less likely to make typos. Because you'll notice I make a lot of typos as I'm typing. And so the first thing we'll install is the package Haven. Note that when you're installing packages, you need to put quotation marks around them, that if you don't do that, you'll get this error, object Haven not found. Because if you don't put quotes around it, it thinks it's some RStudio object or an R object. And we haven't created such an object, and so it's just confused. It doesn't know what we want. But when we put quotes around it, that makes it a string, and so then it looks for that name in its list of packages that it can install. Once you've got your code that you want to run, you can press this button to run everything in the current chunk. What I tend to do is run individual lines, and the way you can do that is by pressing Command Enter or Command Return on a Mac, and I think it should be Control Enter on a Windows. So I've already installed Haven, then install it again just for demonstrative purposes. I'm then going to comment it out because I don't need to actually install it multiple times. And sometimes that can actually mess it up. With something like Haven, I'm not worried about it on my computer, but no need to install more than once. I'm then going to load the library in. And again, you'll notice I started typing and then I pressed Tab and then pressed Enter to select my option. At this point, you don't need to put quotes around Haven. I think you can, and it'll load fine. But you also don't have to, and it will run. You'll notice in the console, there's no output here. Sometimes that happens when you load libraries. Some libraries are very vocal. They like to tell you a lot of things. So for instance, we can load the library here, which I've already installed on this computer. And you'll see that it is verbal. It's telling me where here thinks my file path starts at. So it's saying, if you use the command here, know that we're assuming that you're already in the assignments folder. So scrolling down. You can check that both libraries are loaded because they've got these two checkboxes here. We can skip some of this stuff about groundhog and move on to part 5, so assignment 1.5, which starts by having us save this file. So file, save as, 2023-01-25, Ducate, crim 5305, assignment 1, 3, RMD. And we'll save that. Scrolling. Okay, now we need to load in an SPSS data set. So the instructions tell us to start a new code chunk. I recommend making sure that there is a space between your last code chunk and your next code chunk, because what we discovered the other day was that if they are right next to each other, the file won't knit properly. So make sure there's spaces between your code chunks. And so now we're going to read in a data set. So read SPSS. You'll notice that I, again, auto-completed it just by pressing tab. Depending on how far I've typed, it'll either give me options. So in this case, I could be using SAS or SAV or Stata. But once I write that, there's only one option. And so I can just press tab and it auto-completes. Then we're going to use the here function so that we don't have to type out an entire file path. We can just type out the bits that we want starting from the place where we're at. Data sets, monitoring the future 2013, grade 10, 0.sav. So this is what I've written in your assignment because this is what the file used to be called. However, I get this error. It says file does not exist. Now, when that happens, it could mean a couple of things. Oftentimes, it means you might have a typo. So maybe you've typed furniture or something, and you just need to fix the typo. But if you're looking at it and you're like, no, this all looks right, check to see whether this file exists exactly as written. And so you can go to your file browser. It's going to be it for me. It's under data sets. Yes, I've got a bunch of other things in here for the class. You shouldn't need all of these. I can go to data sets and I can go, oh, shoot. My file is actually called monitoring space, the space, future space, blah, blah, blah. Let me go ahead and write that exactly correctly. Note that you can also look for these files here under, like, this is also your file browser. So if you didn't want to go to your computer's native browser, you can just go to the files tab and do the same thing and go, oh, shoot, like that's actually not called the right thing. Space, 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 space. Bam. Now we have a data set loaded in. Now, the problem at this point is that we've not saved it to anything. So we've read this in and it's just kind of showing us the data set. And so what we want to do now is to save it to an object so that we can use it for future analyses. And so the way we do that is we give the object a name. So MF 2013 G10 data. And then again, I used a hotkey to insert this little arrow with the spaces on either side. You'll have to look to see what the hotkey is for you. I actually modified this based on what I wanted it to be. But the point is we have the name of an object, which right now does not exist. So if I highlight this and press Command Enter or Control Enter, it'll just tell me this object is not found. And we can confirm this in our environment. There's nothing here. It's because we've not created this object, we've not put anything into it. But when we run this command again, you'll notice that you don't get any output, so it doesn't show you the data file that you've just read in, but this pops up, which is that data file. You can click on these things and it'll pop up and show you. We can also MF tab autocomplete, because there's only one thing that it knows called MF, and so it just completes that entire object name for us. And you can see here's our data set. Again, if you wanted to see if it worked, you can just highlight this and press Command Enter, Control Enter, and it'll do the same thing. So that's also useful if you're ever having trouble like troubleshooting. You can often highlight pieces of your code, and as long as it's complete code, it'll run. So the here packet or the here function, for instance, is just writing you like a file path. It's not doing anything else. And so you could actually use read SPSS and copy this whole thing and it would give you the same output. So I encourage you to play around like that when you're doing some of the coding stuff. I think it does help make things make a little bit more sense. And so now we're at part 6. We've got this is all the main bits of assignment 1. We're now at the part of knitting the file. So you can go up here, knit to Word. And ta-da, we have our first assignment. So hopefully you found this helpful. As usual, if you have any questions, please email me, post on the discussion board, tag me in the group me, whatever. I realize this is a little bit long, but hopefully it's helpful. I still encourage you to read everything in the assignments. I'll do these videos for a couple of other assignments, but you should still be reading everything. So I did skim over some explanations and details while I added details elsewhere. So consider this a complement to the instructions rather than a replacement for the instructions. But yeah, I'll go ahead and get started for assignment 2. Good luck, you've got this. I know it's frustrating, but we will get through this and you will learn how to code and you'll feel awesome for it.